All right, so Travis, I'm excited to talk about the future of real estate, the future of land. It's kind of serendipitous that we're talking. I've been reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I know you're a fan of the book. The thing is, this book's been out for 25 years. Tell me, why is now a good time? Why, from 2023 beyond, why is now the right time to get into land flipping and real estate?
Oh my goodness, because well, where I start with what inflation, right? Uncertainty of jobs, unemployment, right? Like the economy in general. It would drive me towards telling a lot of people like, hey, you want to build something outside of that W-2 or that day job, right? Like you need a secondary stream of income because of that uncertainty going on out there. But the reality is also with big data and tech in the last five, maybe 3 to 5 years, like we've just had an incredible amount of new technology come into the game of like within my industry, real estate investing. So it's just incredible the access we have to data, the software, the tools and stuff that I used to have to lock myself in a dark room and spend a weekend in Excel, right? And downloading stuff that the tools are incredible. So there's really like no better time as far as the tools are amazing right now and the data we have access to. AI, there's so many things that we can implement now that weren't available back when I started. But that book itself, for said part, is just timeless, right? Because it's less about like a current strategy or tactic and more about like a mindset shift. And that's why that book played a big role in my mindset and just kind of flipping the script on how you approach assets, liabilities, and then earnings and income in general.
Oh man, you're putting lead in my pencil here right now. Talk about this for anybody that is listening and not watching. I've got a huge grin on my face because as soon as you start talking about tech, AI, and how to implement this new stuff, here's the problem I got, Travis. This is a big faux pas of mine. It gets me very upset. People are always talking about what worked over the last 10 years. The world is freaking different, people. It's changed completely. So tell me, how is it changing in this field, right? Because land hasn't changed. Land is still dirt, soil, location, location, location. But how is it different? How are you leveraging tech to find the opportunities?
Well, it's so fascinating because we're honestly like, I mean, I cannot think of a more tangible asset, but also like a more timeless. Like what? Look all the way back, right? Earth, the dirt, right? Like there's nothing that precedes, right, that we can think on planet Earth than dirt itself. So land in general, yeah, you're taking this like very tangible thing that's been around forever, right? And then you're pairing tools like software, AI, big data, right? Tech, like machine learning, like you're taking all of this stuff, right? And you're leveraging it to buy like the oldest asset that there is.
I just got to jump in because I was listening to Patrick Bet David just the other day. Like it's pretty common knowledge here. It's April of 2023. Everybody's worried about the looming recession. China's going out. They're making deals with Russia. They're making deals with Brazil. They're trying to cut. France. The Prime Minister of France, Macron, came out and said, you know what? We got to be less reliant on the dollar. That's my really crappy French accent there. That's freaking scary, right? But there's only one piece of land that's not replicable, and I think that makes it really interesting for me.
Well, and that's the thing. Like it's not a pitch. As I tell people, when we found it, when we stumbled across like land investing and land flipping, like as a business model, right? I really felt like I kind of found this like not just like the holy grail, right? But just this overlooked and underappreciated asset class. Okay, and since like our business model, what we do and what we teach others to do is to target off market vacant land, right? So not land that's, I mean, we can do that. We can teach on market too, but mainly our focus is off market vacant land that's not on the MLS. It's not listed, right? And it's a numbers game. We're reaching out to a lot of people and very similar, like the We Buy Ugly Houses. We're kind of that of land, right? And that we reach out to people. We try to buy their land at a discount. That's really what we do. So what you're doing though, so you're capturing equity, right? On the buy side. You're buying properties for 50 cents on the dollar, let's say, some for 25 cents on the dollar, right? The higher the value of the property, the less of the deal, right? You know what I mean? Less of a deal you're going to find, but it's really common for us to buy properties for 50 cents on the dollar. So we're buying this tangible asset like land, right? Like you take something like the stock market or a stock, like on your best day, you're not going to go get to buy a stock for half price. You know what I mean? Even if you could, I mean, the stock would explode and everybody would do it. But the reality is they still don't know that stock, where it will be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We know where land will be, right? Like we know that land is going to go up. It's going to appreciate with time. We also know we're going to have the same amount of dirt, the same amount of fence posts, right? Like 5, 10, 15 years from now. It's not like a stock. You know what I mean? It could essentially go to a penny, right? So for us, like when we found land and land investing is incredible because we felt like we were buying like a stock at half price, right? 50 to 75% off, but also it wasn't the stock that was unpredictable. It wasn't crypto or something, right? Where we don't know where it's headed, right? It's not volatile. It's land. It's safe. So for us, yeah, I'm a land evangelist, right? Because it's really changed our life and it's allowed us to invest in an asset class that's not really dependent that much on the economy or really on the stock market, especially. But then we leverage, like you said, like you're talking about AI. Like in the last couple of years for us, we've been able to leverage a lot of these tools in our land buying, our land acquisition business. In the old days, I used to have to like spend all this manual time, pull all these lists of the agents in an area if I want to list some land or get the land I'm going to buy a value. Now I just throw in Chat GPT, hey, give me 10 agents with a lot of sold listings in Maricopa County, Arizona, and it'll bang out a list of potential agents that I can reach out for opinions of value on or potentially list with. And then I could say, hey, you know what? That list you gave me, I only want the best, the ones with the most closings in the last 12 months. Give me the top 3 of those 10. So those are things that in the past, you're like downloading CSV files, right? Like you're sorting, filtering, inside the data. You know what I'm saying? Or there's a lot of manual outreach. So these new tools that we have, we can really leverage to acquire this old timeless asset of vacant land, right?
I love that super practical application. I'm a very practical guy. I love, like NFTs and blockchain, Bitcoin to the moon, by the way. But this stuff is all kind of like fantastical and theoretical. But when you say, give an exact example of how you can do research to find the realtors that you want to target, that's a massive time saver. Just recently, I'll give you another example. I'm working on finding advertisers for a client's podcast, big podcast, gets like 300,000 downloads a month. And I've been looking for advertisers for his podcast. And I said, yo, ChatGPT, do me a solid.
Yeah.
I want you to list me 100 companies that have advertised on podcast. Boom, done. And now what I'm looking at doing is kind of back this up a little bit. I just want to kind of actually contextualize this with your business model here and what you're teaching people how to do at landflippingmastery.com is you're trying to find land that's not on the market, right? And that's a numbers game, right? And you kind of mentioned that.
Yep.
Historically, what people are doing is they're sending out probably tens of thousands of business cards. They're putting they're putting their website on billboards. They're probably putting stuff on benches. Like this stuff is played out, bro. It's played out. What's next? What's new?
Well, so here's some of those things. Like the funny thing about it being played out, especially within our asset class land, okay, since we're targeting people that have possibly owned the land a decade or two, they haven't got around it. It's vacant, right? Why is it vacant? You know what I mean? They haven't got around to building that cabin that they always planned to, or that second home or whatever, but they haven't got around to it. So if we look at things like length of ownership, right, we want to look at probabilities. Why would they sell? The thing with houses that's a struggle for house investors is quite often you're negotiating with people that live in the house. That's an emotional thing to try to buy a house, a home out from under them, right? They've got to find a new place. They've got the kids' heights marked on the door frame, right? Like this is vacant land. You know what I mean? Like people they're unattached. They're not near as attached as they are to a home they're living in. Okay. And so, but when I say length of ownership, that's where that's where this is interesting. Like when you say it's played out, what do people in that demographic, if somebody's owned something 20 or more years, they're naturally going to be older, right? Well, what do the older demographic do? They open their mail, right? Like, so like direct mail, some of these things that we might go, man, that's archaic or that's antiquated. Like You know what I mean? This 60 to 90-year-old demographic, they open their mail. Every letter they get, they're opening up, right? So the interesting thing about land, and land investing is some of the antiquated or it's from the outside archaic looking things like direct mail work really well. Now we've had to make adjustments, especially with well, just everything's went up as we know, right? Since COVID and the cost of everything, we won't get into the politics side of it, but like, we can all agree, and inflation has hit, right? Like everything costs more. So postage and paper, right? That's a big part of direct mail. So for us, we have to look at new creative ways, like how can we continue to get leads without our cost per lead going up, right? So we start to look at things like text messaging, right? So we look at cold calling, text messaging, where the cost of a text doesn't go up with inflation, right? So we leverage some of those newer things like that, where we run cold calling campaigns, text messaging campaigns, and that's something not everybody's doing. Maybe the top five, right? Top five, top 10%, right? But we're kind of operating at a different level where a lot of people use one channel of outbound marketing. We use three. So we're doing direct mail, cold calling, and text messaging, right?
Yo, are you interested in business ownership? For many entrepreneurs, the journey starts with non-food franchising. Franchising is simply the better option for many entrepreneurs, and demand is at an all-time high. Lucky for you, John Austinson, founder of Franbridge Consulting, is here to help you today. John and his Franbridge Consulting team are part of the largest brokerage in the US and are constantly vetting the market thoroughly. Franbridge is hands down the premier source for the best opportunities in the non-food franchising world. They will find the best business for you, your personality, and your location, from healthcare to dumpsters, from youth soccer to oil changes, even insulation and windows. And the best part, it's 100% fee-free, no additional costs to you. You may have heard John on Entrepreneurs on Fire. He has served as an Inc. 500 franchisor, a multi-brand franchisee, and in fact, he's one of the top 1% consultants nationwide. Listen, sign up for a free consultation with the CEO, John, today, not his assistant, not his sales team. Sign up for free with John today at franbridgeconsulting.com. That's franbridgeconsulting.com. And guess what? He's even going to send you a copy of his book for free, Non-Food Franchising. For free book. You got to love it. So go to franbridgeconsulting.com right now. All right, let's get into the episode. I want to pause just for just a minute here. The text messaging is really interesting because I love the scalable stuff. I love it, right? And one of the things that strikes me, I just like to know a little bit more about how you're acquiring leads through text messaging. Are you using any customization in there? Is the primary goal just say, hey, if you're interested, click more? Are you implementing any sort of like AI chat bot? Any sort of like, what does that process look like for you, Travis?
Yeah. So kind of to start with there, I'll back up just a little bit too, because I think even if people have no interest in land or land flipping, this is a good takeaway here to like understand this, because this can be applied across every business that needs lead gen. Okay. Like within every business, you need customers, right? You need clients, right? So you need acquisition. So where that starts is a targeted marketing list. Whether you need to put on new roofs, you're looking for old houses that are ready to have a new roof on based on their age, right? Or whether you're looking at people with pools or don't have pools, right? So there's like all this data, right? Maybe you're a guy, a pool company, you want to put in pools. So your list would be every house that doesn't have a pool, or every house that's had a pool for a long time. It needs to be remodeled, right? So my point is that at the root of everything is a data source, a database, right? So you got to find that database. Okay. So once you have that database, for us, that's like the assessor tax roll for land, right? Like everybody's got to pay their taxes, right? Like it or not, whether you own a house or you own vacant land, you're paying taxes. And if you aren't, it's going to end up at an auction, probably, right? But the reality is, in order for them to collect taxes, they need to keep good records, right, about the property. So that's our data source. We get all of our data essentially from the assessor tax roll. Now we use some big boy toys and softwares that allow, they aggregate it and clean up the formatting. So we're not going to 20 different counties and have 20 different formats, right? So we use softwares that do that for us, but we essentially pull a marketing list. And then with that marketing list, Maybe the assessor, they're not going to give you a mobile phone or a text to text message, right? So you take that, like that core information of the property address, the owner's mailing address, and then you skip trace that whole list. What that means is you upload that Excel sheet, this whole marketing list, and it will append or add all of the phone numbers, right? Landline, mobile, and it adds everything to that. Okay, now you can add a whole bunch of additional public information that you don't even want to know that's available, right? I mean, anything and everything. Think like in terms of like politics and polling and campaigning, right? Like, I mean, you can. There's just hundreds and hundreds of columns of data about you or me and everybody else out there, right? But what we're concerned with for what we're doing is getting that phone number, right, and possibly email or some other information, right? In addition to the property address and the mailing address. So we pull that list, we skip trace that list to get those additional phone numbers, and then that's where we start to run our cold calling and text campaigns. Okay.
I just want to interject. One of the cool things about using that list is it's pretty easy to customize your text and your messages. By the way, everyone, if you didn't know this, your everybody's favorite word is their name.
Yep.
So by customizing your text, your email to say, "Hey Joe, hey Travis," you're going to increase your ability to get.
It's not hi, Mr. Owner or Mrs. Owner. You're right. It's like grabbing from like first name, right? Just like you're saying, right? So yeah, it appears personalized, whether people get a letter from us that was mail merged with 10,000 other ones, or they get a text where there's a merge field, like you're talking about, a placeholder, right? It's personalized and it looks like it was just sent to them.
Yeah.
What we would do, that's the initial outreach, but leveraging, like you said, leveraging AI and stuff would be like after the initial outreach, somebody responds and said, "Hey, I might be interested. Depends on the price," right? Or, you know what I mean? How quickly can you close? I need money or something. That's where you could do things. And this is what most people aren't current or not doing yet. That's where you can leverage AI and stuff, where you could go, "Hey, I've got a seller, a 62-year-old seller that lives in, northeastern Florida. Okay. They're looking to relocate, or downsize. I've been corresponding with them. I don't want to come across high pressure or salesy, but I want to create a sense of urgency for them to sell us their land. Please provide a potential, text, phone, and email script for our second conversation where I can create a sense of urgency or build trust. So these are examples of like an input, right? With AI and stuff, like anything, whether it's an employee you're instructing, or whether it's a chatbot or AI or something you're instructing, the output or deliverable is only as good as the input. So, as much as you clarify or as good a job as you do making that input or that ask, there's going to be a big correlation to your output. So we do that with that you could do that with AI where and then it would give you a script, right? It would give you a custom text script, email script, phone script. You could even say, "Hey, I've been corresponding with this person. They've ghosted me. They haven't responded. I want to continue to follow up with them over the next 6 months. Please create me a text message follow-up sequence that's one text a month for 6 months." And then, and they'll bang it out. So, that's kind of how you leverage things like, AI within real estate investing. You could also do things like you could take your list of all the deals you've ever bought, right? And you could look for machine learning and stuff. You could look at what are the patterns, right? Length of ownership, age of owner, out of state, not out of state. There's just so many things, right, that used to all be manual that we can now use tools for. But at the end of the day, what we're honestly doing is we're targeting an asset that's off market, not for sale. We're trying to buy it at a discount, which means we capture equity, right? So we're not like a house flipper, not focusing on appreciation or after repair value. If you've ever watched the HGTV house flipping show, right? It's not just for drama that they show mold in the wall. It's the reality is if you ever flipped or done a house flip or anything, there's always something that you can't plan for. There's always some expense that comes up. I mean, so it's I'm sure some of that's for the cameras, but the reality is there's always additional cost, right? Above and beyond what you think that come up. When we're dealing with vacant land, we don't have that drama, and we're not creating sweat equity. with a remodel. Like we're capturing equity on the buy side. So then we realize that when we turn around and resell it. So that's where I think our model's a little different, not as exciting, not as sexy, right? As house flipping and picking out new cabinets, you know what I mean? And having contractors not show up, like is not as exciting or dramatic as that. Probably not going to get a show for a while, I imagine, right? On HGTV flipping land, but very profitable, right? Very profitable, very much overlooked. And just a solid business model that's very repeatable because you don't have to live there. You don't have to be in that market.
Well, it's a tried and true topic of buy low, sell high, right? You're buying from because the person that you're buying the home, they don't even have it on the market. They haven't even done any of that work. But because you understand the market, because you're surrounding yourself with the right people at travisking.com, you're able to kind of understand how to list it properly. I have actually a couple questions, and I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback because I want to know both for my own, for myself, quite frankly. One thing I do want to just add, though, when you're talking about using AI to customize pitches, emails, text, this stuff is so powerful in empowering your team. You could bring on someone that has no experience, like an assistant from overseas that doesn't type very well, that doesn't understand. But if you give them the right prompts, if you can help them with if you've already done the prompt engineering, you're going to say, hey, plug and play this stuff. And you can turn a level 3 into a freaking 10 and a half, into a rock star. It's been very, very powerful in my business. I've seen a lot of people doing that. All right. Let's move away from the AI for a minute.
All right.
I want to talk a little bit more about this land investing. You have been around for a hot minute, Travis. You were here when we saw the crash back in 2008, right? That makes me a little bit nervous. I don't want to be caught holding the bag on some land, some real estate. How can we avoid that trap here in 2023? Because it's not looking great.
Right. No, and that's a good question because that's the reality is you need to build a business where you can adapt, right, to different markets, changing markets. So here's an example. I have a client that was probably a year and a half ago, came to me for some one-on-one coaching. He had done some good deals, some big deals, and he was looking for coaching and really wanting to scale up and build out his business. And his model at the time was like, so this would have been January of 2022. Okay. The market's still super hot. Interest rates are still low, right? Everything's rocking and rolling. And he had said, hey, like what I've been doing and what I want to continue doing, but learn how to scale is sourcing infill lots, like buildable lots. You drive through a neighborhood, there's houses everywhere and there's one empty lot, right? That would be like what I'm referencing, an infill lot, sourcing those to builders to build houses. Well, I have no idea. I mean, I had no crystal ball, no idea the interest rates would change like they did, or we'd have such a market shift like we did. But I told him I recognized he was trying to build a business model on what, in my opinion, was like a play in the playbook, not like a business model. It was just a play, right? Sourcing to builder, that's a play. That's not a business plan. So I said, well, hey, my concern with that, if we poke holes in it, is that what if interest rates go up? What if builders pump the brakes, stop building? What if you have all this inventory, right? Like that's a problem. So I said, although things look like they're going to keep going up for a couple more years, but they didn't. But, I said, look, although I think they will, why don't we build your business in such a way, right, that we're like hedged against that? So I said to him, we want to do infill lots and we want to do rural vacant land. Okay, not just infill lots, because infill lots are dependent on if the builders are building materials, right? Cost of lumber, interest rates, there's just so much going on with that. I said, let's also have like in your product line in your business, rural vacant land, because even in downtimes, they're not getting home loans to build on. Like when people buy rural vacant land, it's because someday they want a cabin or they want to go camp there, right? Or get away on the weekends, get out of the city, right? So really that's with him, that's what we did. Like we built it on where there was part of his products, you would say, were rural vacant land and the other part were infill lots. Well, fast forward 4 or 5 months, right? It just felt like out of nowhere, interest rates doubled, right? And builders pumped the brakes, lumber costs went up. And we, at that time, it was looking like some pretty solid advice. Like I said, I didn't have a crystal ball, but I knew because like we had done the SWOT analysis in our own business, right? So what we do is when things are rocking and rolling and people are building and interest rates are low, we go all in on like flipping these infill lots that, that are buildable lots. And we do less rural vacant land, but we continue to do it. But it'd be more like a 70-30, right? We're 70% into infill lots. We're doing big cash flips. And then when things change in the market, whether it's flat or the market is inverted a little, then we shift to rural vacant land because it's something that it always sells. Like it just always sells well, regardless of economy, especially if you sell on payments. So that's a big part of it, right? Like anytime you open anything up, any asset up to payments, right? Americans are trained like to go, hey, can I afford this monthly payment, right? So even with the land, it's no different. Like although somebody might not have 100 grand cash to buy the lot, they probably got 25 grand down and 350 a month, right? So that's where rural vacant land does really well. So we balance those two things, to kind of hedge. And then we swing the pendulum based on where the market is at. So right now we're doing a bunch of seller financing on rural vacant land, less infill lots because there's not builders lining up to build with these interest rates, right? But the other hedge you do, this is a big hedge too, is rather than buy and hold or buy outright and flip, you wholesale, okay? Because you don't want it. What I mean, I'll explain that. What wholesaling is that you essentially find the deal, you get it under contract, and then you sell the contract or assign the contract to another investor or somebody else, and you take the quick nickel instead of the slow quarter, right?
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Sell $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 assignment fee, just essentially sign over the contract to the next buyer. And you leave enough meat on the bone for them to still, make money on the deal. But that's really, I think, in these times that's what's catching a lot of traction, and we're doing a lot of is assigning contracts or wholesaling the contract, because then we don't sit on the inventory. So if the days on market are longer on the sell side, right, we're not tying up all our money. We're not like playing that game of where's the economy going. So you just take that quick nickel and you wholesale during times like this.
Diversifying. In essence, you're diversifying.
Yeah, exactly. So there's plays in the playbook, like I say, like you don't want to be a one-trick pony and only run thing, because that's when you get exposed, is when markets shift.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, this is really interesting. It's really intriguing to me. Definitely, and like I mentioned earlier, listening to Patrick Bet-David the other day in his mastermind, and he's saying like the dollar's exposed. I'm investing in hard assets, right? Gold, property. I'm into NFTs. I don't think he mentioned that. Artwork, sports cards, things like that. Stuff that's non-duplicable, which is land. I guess the big question here I've got, Travis, is what's it going to take? How much realistically do I need to have in the bank to actually make this happen? How much do I need? A, and B, do I need to have a realtor's license? I don't have a real estate license right now.
Right.
I know like most, like 90% of America does, but I don't. So
Yeah.
A, do I need a real estate license, and how much is it going to cost me to get started in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of a myth to start off with debunking. Is you're right. You don't need a license to buy and sell land. Like when I first started, I was like, wait a minute, do we have to get our realtor's license? But what you learn is that you get a license so you can represent somebody else and sell their land. This is for sale by owner. You're buying the land, right? Like anybody's allowed to buy land. Heck, that's why this opens up the opportunity to people out of the country. Even non-U.S. residents can buy land remotely, right? So anybody can buy land, and then you just turn around when you list it, you have an agent list it for you. Now you're welcome to for sale by owner and list it yourself if you don't want to pay the commission, but I don't like to field it's not the best use of my time, or I feel like anybody's time, to field all those phone calls and tire kickers. I'd rather focus on the next deal, right? So we leverage agents 100% to sell the properties, but no, you don't. So we use agents. I have nothing bad to say about agents. We try to find like specialized land agents, people that understand the land, because it's a little different animal, right, than your house in a gated community. Okay. Right. So we do try to find specialized land agents, and there's a lot of them out there, a lot of great agents. But no, for us on the buy side, like you don't have to have a license to buy property, right? And then you have a license to sell property if you want to do it for sale by owner. So that's something that I think is just like a myth or a stigma, right, with it, that people don't realize.
You do want to have an LLC set up though for all the tax benefits. That's probably a story for
Yeah,
another.
that's a whole nother episode, but absolutely. Yeah. Especially depending on how many assets you have, right? Or how much you want to limit your liability.
Yeah. What? So give me the money part. Give me the money part. How much do I actually need to get started in this? Was like $1,000 enough to play? Do I need 20? Like where do I need?
Well, so like all great answers, right? I'll start with it depends. Okay, so for us, I'm kind of a slow learner, so it took us about 3 years to figure this out. But we started out with using all our own money for everything. Okay, so we would run all of our marketing campaigns with our own money. We would buy properties with our own money. Okay, and then we would list the property and we'd sell it, and we'd have to wait for the properties to sell to bring our own money back in to do the next deal, right? Because we were trying to like snowball and build up the business. At about 2 years, I identified this was a really going to hamstring us or limit us from scaling, right? So I knew it, but then it was a tough nut to crack, like getting other people's money or access to it. Because as soon as I'd go out and say, hey, I'm buying and selling these properties, I've never lost money. We've done 100 deals, you know, private money lenders and hard money lenders would get all excited. And then you'd say the word land and they'd kind of be like, whoa, okay, I'm out, right? Like, because there's a stigma with land that it sits, it's a great long-term investment, but that there's not velocity, right? Or it doesn't sell or move quickly. And it's really kind of a stigma. It's kind of like residue from pre-internet, right? With the internet and Zillows, it opened things up to everybody, right? To buyers everywhere. So it's a non-issue, but there's still a lot of old school people, right? That like think that. In the last 5 years, it's completely opened up. But early on, what I'm getting at is there weren't like hard money lenders, private money to buy the properties 10 years ago when I started. Now there is. So what we started to do in order to scale was our two biggest expenses were, well, one, for sure, the leader was buying properties, right? The cash it took. Two was marketing, right? All this direct mail, postage, right? These campaigns. So I said, how do I stop using my own money? So for us, we use this service called Fund and Grow. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but they help you secure 0% business credit cards. So we made the decision to do that, and they secured us more money than we'd ever need, like with 0% business credit cards, which don't show up on your, on your credit score or your personal record or anything, right?
Right. I understand.
We decided to use those 0% business cards for all of our marketing because all our properties were selling. Like I say, the business model worked. We just didn't have enough capital to scale. So
but hold on for a second. In order for you to get, so what you're telling me is that you can start to buy and sell these vacant properties without your own money by using these business loans, these business cards.
We use business cards for the marketing, and then we ended up finding private money lenders to put up the money for the buying the properties. So that's where I was going with this. Then I'll circle back and answer like what it cost us. But when we moved away from doing everything and using our own money to doing that because it allowed us to scale, right? We ran our marketing campaigns through 0% business credit cards, and then we found money partners that were willing to put up the money, and then we would split profits on the deal. And that allowed us to, do as many deals as we could. So, but when we started our first property market, we bought off an online auction. And this is a good little tip too for somebody. It's called bid4assets.com, the number 4 in the middle, bid4assets.com. When a lot of these counties, people don't pay their taxes, what happens is the counties need to auction them off. They don't know how to run an auction. So they hand it off to this site. They partner with this site. So you can buy properties. Like you could go on there today and you can buy properties from online auctions. So we started out buying properties at like $500 for a parcel of land, right? And then we turn around and sell it for $2,500 or $5,000. Okay. So that's how we started. So for us, there was no marketing spend when we were buying through auctions. So as far as getting started, right? Like we started with less than $4,500. We started our whole business, right?
So you kind of start small, prove concept, and then you're able to scale it up. And then you can go to lenders, I would assume. And the lender's like, oh, you've done this, this, and this.
That's how we did it, right? That was our approach. But along the way, after like I started coaching, after about 5 years of doing this, I was in all these advanced investor groups, these forums, and I'd see new people post questions, right? And they would be struggling with the same things I had 3, 4, years ago. And I'm like, I could answer this in 5 minutes and save them, months and months of agony, right? So I started spending a lot of time in these forums answering questions and helping people. And I started kind of like informally and unpaid, just like having people pick my brain and call me on the phone. And, I'm a land fanatic, so I love this stuff. So I'm getting to talk shop with people, but I'm like, hey, here's what you want to do. You pull your list this way, you do this, target these values, right? And then I would have like a client call me, he's like, hey, everything worked perfect. We got this one that's worth 110,000. We got it under contract for 50, and I'm like, awesome. What great. Yeah, thanks. No problem. I'm happy to help. And well, I don't have 50. I have the 50,000 and you want to partner with me. So it very organically, like the coaching led to joint venturing and partnering on deals. And then it was just a situation where you would help others grow as you partnered on deals. And then they would tell a buddy, right? Like when you go make, 25, 50 grand on a flip or deal, everybody goes and breaks to their friends and family, right? Like, so then like someone's like, hey, I want to get into this. My buddy wants to start this. So I started like no website, nothing, just like informally, organically helping all these people like build their businesses and just replicate exactly what we had done without all the mistakes we made in the first 3 years. So what that led to, Mark, was we eventually, there's so much demand that's why we started travisking.com, an education company, and then freedomlandcapital.com. We co-own with a partner, which is the capital company, right? So we solve those problems that we had along the way, right? We're now solving those same problems that we had for other people. So that's where I say, like, when somebody goes, how much does it take to get started? It's like, well, you have to decide, like, if you want to use your own money, if you got a rich uncle, if you got access to capital, like you don't need to, there's no point in splitting, right? Or partnering with anybody. But those are decisions you make early on. Are you using all your own money? Or are you going to use somebody else's? Right. But you could start super small. I mean, you can literally do this and buy $1,000 properties and sell them for 3,000, 4,000. That's what we did, a lot of those our first year. And it was just like proof of concept, taking no risk and stacking up a little bit of money. But quite often now when I coach, I just tell people, like, leverage other people's money and it de-risked. It doesn't have to be mine. I've got a list of 20 other guys, right? Guys that I've coached and trained and have relationships with that have more money than time. And they'd be happy to help, right? So I tell people, just leverage somebody else's money, okay? And then start out with doing bigger deals. Because if you do it, you don't need to spend 3 years with proof of concept or validating the model.
Well, I could definitely tell you really, really know your stuff. And just like you, I could go on forever when I talk about this great stuff. And by the way, if you're trying to use other people's money, just launch an NFT PFP project. That's the best thing to do.
Well, I say hat with you about that, because that's actually, I would say, a little out of my wheelhouse. But ironically, years back, I had a company reach out and they were trying to do digital title with land.
Yeah.
They had scraped all the records and they'd identified us as like a major player for the amount of transactions we were closing with the county. So they partnered with us and they're like, hey, we want to, build out this client dashboard, do all these things, and you can load all your loans into our account for free, right? So anyway, I started working with this company and they were doing all this. And this was like 3, 4 years ago. I was like, I don't even know what blockchain, Ethereum, NFT, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? But they're like, hey, we'll run all your loans. We'll do everything for free. You can help us build the software, right? So I did this. And then this company actually ended up getting bought by the Mark Cuban companies, right? So they were very early on with that. But I recognize what they're doing with digital title. Okay. So I think it's just inevitable that eventually all these things make their way into real estate, right?
I was at NFT Miami a couple weeks ago, and I don't recall his name, but one of the commissioners, he's big in the city of Miami, the county of Miami. They're already starting to put titles on blockchain. They're starting to put sewer systems and utilities on blockchain. So I will say this is a quick preface. Anybody, if you're interested in starting to get into NFTs for ownership, I would definitely tell you to pump the brakes, because there's a lot of there's just a lot of craziness in that industry, which is why I think the industry is kind of in a bear market right now. We'll see what happens with I'm very, very bullish on blockchain and NFTs long term, but anyway, if you're looking at getting into NFTs, I would just say, do your I know this is very cliche to say do your research, but there's a lot of weird. Let me put it this way: the more complicated it is, the less likely it is to be a good thing to be involved in. And what I find, there's a lot of complicated.
You don't want to enter anything with a lot of excitement, but not like, you know, not intelligently. You know, you don't want to just
Yes.
move in emotionally. You held up that book earlier, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was the story of my early 20s, was like reading an incredible book, but not studying it, more like using it as a hype, rah, like I came out like, all right, I'm ready to go buy houses, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's incredible advice within the book, but at the same time, you got to educate yourself, right? There's a little more to it, right? Like with inspections and appraisals and interest rates, right? A little bit more. So that's like what you're saying with NFTs is like anytime you want to do something new, you want to throw a whole bunch of money or even a little bit of money to something you don't understand, right? You got to get oriented. And so you got to identify whoever that is, like that resonates with you, right? And an educator, a trainer, maybe it's you, like whoever has a program or something, kind of got to look around and vet and identify the major players, right? And get
Yeah.
oriented before you break out your wallet, right? Because I think that's where we make a lot of mistakes, is when we enter something excited but but naive, right?
Yeah, 100%. Emotional decisions are often misled. I could give you a few stories about things that I've seen, but I think to your point, listening to people that you know, like, and trust, getting involved, join the program. Of course, you can learn more about what Travis is doing at travisking.com. And Travis, if there's one thing I would say, it's I love your approach to what's next. You mentioned this a few times. Everyone's focusing on, oh, that won't work. It didn't work 10 years ago. That stuff is all dead, people. 10 years ago, it's a different world. Even over the last 6 months, the world has changed a lot. So getting in with people that are adopting and using this tech now is going to put you at a massive advantage. So Travis, really appreciate you being here. Before we get into the rapid fire, tell us, where's the best place for us to connect with you?
Yeah, well, I think so. Landflippingmastery.com is kind of a training program that we have. We created a coupon code after hours if somebody's interested in taking the training program, right? All your listeners can get a good discount with that. But if you're like, land sounds interesting, but I'm not ready to invest in a course or anything yet, right? We've got a great, I spent a long time. We went to the studio, we recorded this, we did it right. I created a 7-day free, 100% free, Mark. It's called the landflippingchallenge.com. If people go there over the course of 7 days, I've got like 5 hours worth of training content. It kind of like, it will orient you with land. And then through the course of those 7 days, you'll be, do I like this guy? You know, do I want to learn from him? Does he know what he's talking about? And you're going to understand like selling land, selling rural vacant land on payments, or flipping buildable lots for cash, you know? So I think the landflippingchallenge.com is an incredible resource, because when I got started, man, I spent like probably 7 to 9 months on, you know, YouTube University and, you know, watching videos and reading blog articles and duct taping it all together. So that's my gift to people, that putting this together is like 7 days worth of training, over 5 hours of content recorded in the studio, 100% free. So I think that's a great spot for everybody to check out, as the Land Flipping Challenge. And by the time you're done, like you'll get land, and you'll get why this is such an overlooked asset class by most people.
Dig it, Travis. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, rapid fire. Get ready. Buckle up, Buttercup. We are going in deep. Travis, what is the scariest freaking movie you've ever seen?
The what? Scariest what?
Scariest movie you've ever seen, bro. What is it?
I got scariest movie? Yeah, I'm not. Oh my gosh. You know, I'm going to go back. This might not be considered as horror or scary movie for most people. I'm going to say Jaws, because this thing has stuck with me my whole life. You know, we went to Hawaii last year, and I still, like, the whole time I'm swimming, all I'm hearing the Jaws sound, the movie sound, and I'm thinking that, right? Like, here it is, this movie I watched, I was probably 8 or 10 years old, right? And it's still with me. So, although it's not a slasher flick or something, I'm going to say it's one that'll stick with you.
The thing that's great about that, and it's a common answer too, by the way, is sometimes the scariest thing is what you don't see. The scariest thing is what you don't see, you know, to your point. Great. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Well, I think my favorite spot is probably, speak to that, it's probably Maui. It's probably like one of my favorite places. It's just kind of I'm from Montana, so I grew up, I spent a lot of time in a very chill place, right? A whole different frequency, different vibe, different pace in Montana. But you go to like Hawaii and in Maui, and it's just a different vibe. But that's a whole different pace too. Like just everything's so casual, so laid back, right? So for me, that's yeah, it's just been probably my favorite place. We spent a lot of time also up at Lake Tahoe. That'd probably be a second one.
Dig it. If you could sit next to anyone on a plane, who would you sit next to?
Man, let's see. I'd probably go Michael Jordan. Right,
Ooh,
big basketball fan, so I'd definitely love to.
the GOAT. Sorry, LeBron fans. MJ's the GOAT. Sorry.
Kind of the behind the scenes talk, right? The what didn't make it on the documentaries, right?
No doubt. And a final question here for you, Travis King. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
Oh boy, I would say don't limit your goals to your own means or mindset. That's something as we've continued to scale and grow, and our financial goals have grown. I realized we set such small goals. They were big at the time, but they were still small in the scheme of things, right? But when you're thinking through the lens of your own resources, you tend to think much smaller. So like I talk about using other people's money and stuff, like when you have access to a lot more capital, you think a lot bigger than when you're just looking at your own savings account, right? So I think I would tell myself that early on is like, one, like, set bigger goals, right? And don't try to do everything yourself. I think leverage others and leverage other people's money. And then for us, we're in a game of real estate. So it's like very transactional. And it took me 4 or 5 years to realize that although transactions were the game we're in, it's like really relational. That's where the money comes from, is establishing relationships with people. So it's, way more than 10 seconds, but hopefully that's a couple.
I'll give it to you. I mean, your time machine just left, so now you're trapped back 10 years ago, but simpler times, simpler times. Travis, thanks for joining the show today. Thank you, actually, for subscribing to the show. We'll catch you in the next video. We're going to keep telling you and showing you the best ways to leverage tech to make more money moving forward. Travis, thanks, brother.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for having me.